self-reflective. There's the reflective teaching model. My wife's a school teacher. You have to reflect on what you've done. And if I leave a lesson, this is a timed experience. It's 60 minutes. And the reality is, after that time, something may occur to you or you might leave with a feeling where I could have done that better. And then you try to figure out how to do it better.
You are and will always be your most valuable asset. Welcome to the Me Inc. podcast, a series of conversations with individuals living happy, healthy, and engaged lives, while exploring the importance of emotional intelligence to thrive in this ever-changing world. My name is Nigel Franklin, a CPA, MBA, and a certified emotional intelligence coach. My mission and passion is to enable others to be that best version of themselves by understanding the importance of making investments in their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Let's start the show. Ever wondered how life's twists and turns can lead someone from the greens of a golf course to the corridors of law, and then back again with newfound wisdom? Today, we have a guest whose journey embodies adaptability, passion, and the surprising places life can take us. From finding a golf club on a baseball field in Chicago to pioneering technological advances in golf coaching, Paul Kaster's story is nothing short of remarkable. But it's not just about golf. It's a testament of embracing change, channeling setbacks into comebacks, and truly understanding oneself. So whether you're a golf enthusiast or someone seeking inspiration from the diverse tapestry of life, this episode promises a mix of insights, passions, and tales of unwavering perseverance. Let's dive in. So super excited for today's conversation. With me, I have Paul Kaster. Paul is a phenomenal golf coach. I've been working with Paul for the last 2 years or so. One-of-a-kind instructor, very unique approach to the game, very unique approach to coaching, to life. And I've always enjoyed our interactions. Paul provides personalized coaching programs for adults and junior students. He was recognized as one of the best teachers in New Jersey since 2017, selected twice as one of the top 50 kids coaches in the world. He is an ambassador to many brands. But in addition to our conversation today about his current golf coaching path, he's also an accomplished player. But even more astonishing, he is a former attorney. So, Paul, I'd like to say a very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. It's very nice to be here.
Where we always start is just share a little bit about who Paul is. And for the audience, it's not necessarily what the individual is doing, but who the individual is and how they're walking through this world. Paul, who's Paul?
I'm still trying to figure that out, I think. But I think it makes sense when you're talking about who you are, at least in my case, how I became or returned to golf is to go back and talk about who I was when I was in high school and how I became a golfer. So I grew up in Chicago. My dad was a college professor. And believe it or not, I was a baseball player who found a golf club on a baseball field in the outfield and found a golf ball. I lived in an interesting part of Chicago, not far from the University of Chicago campus. And so it wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for a golfer to have gotten chased out of the park and abandoned the golf club and the balls. And so that may be how I came to find it.
So someone's misfortune was your gift.
Could have been. I got the golf club and I started to hit balls around the park. And I knew nothing. And golf wasn't even really a thing in Chicago at the time. But I was a good baseball player and I was a pitcher. And turns out I was also a sidearm pitcher. And based on what I know now about human movement and the golf swing, that was a very fortunate thing for me. I was able to pick up the game without knowing a whole lot and without a lot of cost. And then I asked for a golf lesson for my, I want to say 13th birthday. And I went to Emmanuel Worley, who was my coach until I graduated high school. And he happened to be the best black player in the country between Calvin Peete and Tiger Woods. This was at Jackson Park in Chicago, only 18-hole public golf course in the city. I was just a little bit more than a mile away from my house, so I could ride my bike there. I'd go for this first lesson with Manny, get my parents funded that, and that was probably the last thing in golf that they funded for a while. I just remember having a good experience, and he just probably didn't do a whole lot to me. Just watched me hit golf balls. And he said, when are you coming back? And I said, I know my parents are not going to pay for this second lesson. So he said, just don't worry about it. Just come back. We'll figure something out. And so I went back, and he basically let me work his driving range whenever he needed help in exchange for full playing privileges and practice at Jackson Park at a driving range and a golf course. And that continued all the way through high school. I can promise you right now that in the world that we live in the golf industry now, that would never happen again because of insurance and other things. I was very lucky. So I got to see a lot, and I could just play and practice as much as I wanted. Eventually I caddied for him in qualifiers, and it worked out. In retrospect, he was very clever. And it was just a great situation. I got to caddy for him. I gripped golf clubs for him. Mm-hmm. He saved some money that way, and I loved it. And I literally could not get enough of it. I ended up playing Division I college golf from that experience, which is pretty unusual compared to how other people who reach that level of golf. I went to Colgate University. I played on the team there. I was the co-captain of the golf team by my junior year. I had some amazing experiences early in my golf career. Backtrack to high school where I played really well pretty early on and shot 69 in the Cook County Amateur Qualifier. Still very ignorant and unaware. By the time I went to college, I fully intended to play professional golf. And going to Colgate was actually more of a compromise with a academically oriented father.
Where's Colgate?
It's in upstate New York, like an hour southwest of Syracuse.
Okay.
So central upstate New York, the Shenango Valley. Man, it wasn't really the best place for me. And so I was the kid by himself practicing, hitting balls into the net, videoing myself in 1996. Trying to make my golf swing better all winter long by myself. Totally okay with that. But really just there wasn't a facility for that. So I think I broke a mirror that winter, got in trouble. It wasn't like people were embracing this search for better. It was like a pain in somebody's butt that I was doing it. I worked on my game, continued to try to get better. Just, I would say, felt stuck, but was still playing very good golf, and eventually was able to just persuade my parents that college isn't really the right place for me right now. And I wasn't academically motivated, even though I probably could have been just fine. So I left college. I played professionally for 3 years. I played on the Golden Bear Tour and some other mini tours. And then I got hurt in 2001 and blew out my left wrist, and ended up going back to school. I finished my undergrad at Rutgers, and then I went to law school at the University of Miami, and I did okay there, even though I really didn't like it a lot at all.
So you're going down the path, but you already know you don't like it.
My mom was an attorney. My grandfather was an attorney and a judge and a businessman, and nobody seemed very happy in law school. And my mom said, nobody likes law school. So
then what was the rationale as to why you should be doing it then? It was
in furtherance of a good, stable, conventional future. And it was like, I got to have my fun. I got to see how good I could be at golf. I got to see that I was pretty good. I tell people now that the wrist injury was actually probably it was a blessing, because I was playing against and with Jason Duffner, Matt Kuchar, all 3 of Johnny Miller's kids, 2 of Jack Nicklaus's kids, Mike and Gary, Lee Trevino's grandson, you name it, like all of the kids of the great player. I was just a little bit behind Jason Duffner, who would just clean house every summer on the Golden Bear Tour. And I was definitely behind Matt Kuchar, who had been a star because of his performance in the Masters after winning the U.S. Amateur. I would have been stubborn and I would have persisted because I knew how good I was. So I tell people, once you go down that road, options foreclose in life. You go further down this road of playing professional golf. And so I went back to school. I got an education. I learned how to think and I learned how to learn.
You learn how to think and learn how to learn. You mind unpacking that?
If you don't learn how to think differently in law school, you don't survive. You learn to think logically, unemotionally, which can be a big benefit in life. To be successful in life, you just have to be able to learn and adjust. I think that you cannot be fixed in your routines and unaware of the things that are happening around you in this world. And things are changing way too fast for people to approach life that way. I played in pro-ams and I was much more of a competitive player 12 years ago. But then the industry really evolved and teaching really evolved in that time frame. And if you weren't keeping up with the technology and aware of how things are changing, you could easily have fallen behind in a way that would have been not so good for you.
Yeah, that's actually really cool that you're saying. The value adds that I've found in our interaction is that you are very forward thinking and you have an individualized approach for each client based on their mobility, based on their goals. I think maybe we can go more into that and how you embrace technology to it. But you're in law school, you're learning to think and
Learning to learn.
And learning to learn. And so, yeah, just keep going from that space.
When you're a golfer and a player, you're actually better off not being super intellectual about how you go about that. But we don't operate best as athletes from our intellect, I don't think. You probably understand some of that. I'm sure you do. I had to reorient myself to become a good student and a good law student and an effective attorney. And in the process of doing that, I had to learn how to learn and think in a particular way.
What part of law did you go into and what was the specialty?
So what I knew in law school was that I couldn't sit at a desk and read and write for long periods of time. So I wanted to be a trial lawyer. So for 2 years in law school, I clerked at the prosecutor's office here in New Jersey. And by the second summer, it was pretty fun. I did a clerkship with a civil court judge my first year out of law school. And then got a job as a deputy attorney general here in New Jersey, representing the Division of Youth and Family Services, DIFA, and was thrown right into an assignment representing a local office in Newark in child protective services matters. So in that world, there's two functions that service, that office or that DIFA serves. One is to remove and ensure the safety of children. And then the other is to prepare them for adoption and find permanent homes. So I was always the child protective services emergent guy. I would advise social workers when the facts supported removing kids from homes, unless it was just really obvious and they didn't need my advice. And there were lots of cases where that was the case. And I have a lot of admiration for those people, for my colleagues and the people I represented. So you're just dealing with a lot of the negative stuff in life, but I was up for it. I was game for it.
It seems like such a heavy place to be.
I took that job because I wanted to do something that had meaning. Professional golf, playing by doing this all for yourself, it's you fundamentally self-centered thing, and it gets old and a little lonely. At least it was for me. I think there are other people maybe for whom it's perfectly suited. I wanted to do something different now that I had this opportunity, and I was proud. I created that opportunity for myself. I was a good student.
Okay.
And so I wanted to go to the public service side of things, and I thought I was tough. And that is a very tough job. You're at a time carrying 110 cases of some really bad stuff. I did that, and it was a grind, and I worked 6 days a week because I wasn't going to mess up when those were the stakes. I definitely realized, like, as an attorney, if you that's really like cross between litigation and social work. And so it's not technical law. I realized the longer I stayed in it, the more restricted I would be to basically staying in that for my entire career. And I wasn't sure that I really wanted to do that. And I took a job with a firm that kind of did some criminal defense and some civil litigation. That's a pretty common jump. I did it more to have the experience, because this was the direction that somebody in my position would typically take. I also interned for a couple of members of Congress when I was in college. The idea was that maybe I could go work on the Hill or do something like that later. We have ideas in life, and you don't know what you don't know. And until you experience it, you don't really know. And I learned. And eventually my wife was just like, I got my amateur status back. I was playing golf. My wrist had healed up enough that I could hit some balls off turf, and my golf swing was baked in, and I started to play well again. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed competing on a very limited practice schedule. And my wife was like, you've consistently been happy when you came back from the golf course since you started to do this again, even when you didn't play well in tournaments. So maybe we should think about doing something different. And it's pretty cool to have a wife who is going to be supportive of that kind of a risk, leaving an established legal job where I was doing a good job and then going in some very different direction. But after some thinking, and she wasn't completely wrong, an opportunity came up. A friend of mine became a general manager at a golf course not far away, about 45 minutes, and he needed a golf pro. And the position that he had available was the person who was going to be able to do a lot of teaching. And I had always enjoyed teaching golf, and I'd done that a little bit when I was like home as a mini tour player, not traveling at the place where I played and practiced. And I'd done that with Manny growing up in Chicago. I helped him with clinics. And that appealed to me, that job at Highbridge Hills with Jay. And I talked to Emily about it, and we decided to go for it. And that was in late 2011.
Oh, okay.
And it's very interesting how things work out. I put targets out on the range. I actually went and bought poles, and Doug worked with the superintendents to dig holes and put them out there and create targets. And then that first summer, the head pro working under Jay got sick and left the business, and I became the director of golf. And then that same summer, 2012, I qualified for the Metropolitan Open, which was a former PGA Tour event and a big deal. And I shot 68 to get into that. And things just started to build on themselves. And the more I taught, the better I played. And it was very interesting how that worked, that I wasn't really practicing a ton, but yet playing well.
What do you attribute that to? Because there's a direct correlation between the amount of practice and the outcomes in many things. It seems like you're in a better mental state. You're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah. So, when you're teaching, you always have a golf club in your hand. If you're doing it the right way, you're demonstrating for people a little bit, because people learn by watching. So I would always be hitting shots here and there and explaining things to people. And then just the more into golf you are and around it you are, even if you're not hitting tons of golf balls, I had done that in my life. So I could hit a golf ball, I could hit a pitch shot, I could make putts. But you also, when you're doing this in front of people, there's a little bit of pressure. But the following year, I was lucky in a lot of ways. I say in the development of my career, I got an opportunity to become a full-time instructor because that was what I wanted to do. And I got a job at the Academy of Golf at Royce Brook, which was closer to our house. Royce Brook is known in New Jersey as a melting pot for a lot of the junior golfers around the state. And so I took that job, and things went pretty well, and I got pretty busy. And so I was trying to play, still played a fair amount that year. But you realize after a while that as you get older, that there's only so much that you can really do. And as a teacher, there's a lot that goes into teaching for a living and continuously learning. And eventually you have to choose, because local events in New Jersey don't support a family. And I also just really enjoyed teaching a lot, and the engagement and relationships that I had with clients and the interaction. It's very fulfilling, and the problem solving is very fulfilling too.
Confirming what I've learned. You had a direction that you wanted to go to. Once you're on that path, you were committed. There was always a link to what brings you happiness, what brings you joy, what truly ignites you. And what I'm hearing is that it wasn't necessarily about money or accomplishment, but it was something that was more deeper, intrinsic. Am I on the right path here? Or
yeah, I think that's true. Maybe it's to my detriment at times. I haven't really been motivated by money a lot in my life. And maybe that's because I was very lucky growing up and my parents had enough of it. I don't know. But to me, doing something that I felt was rewarding and that I had a passion for, it made a lot more sense. As a good golfer, when you know that you're good, it's very hard to turn away from that. Or it was for me. I learned that I was a pretty decent teacher, and I enjoyed it. I was a pretty good coach, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the interaction, and people seemed to enjoy me. I knew the level of preparation that the best players were doing. Mm-hmm. I knew that I was also getting older. I didn't have backers with $100,000 a year to support a playing career, and I didn't really have any real inkling to, I want to go do this again.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So it's almost like growing, and being self-aware that you're not the same person, or you're not standing in that same stream twice. So you're growing and you're evolving.
Yeah, the stream changes, you change. So yes, that 100%.
So just onto the coaching part of it. In Indonesia, I found my way to Aimpoint, and I took an Aimpoint class there, but then I came home and there was just a lot I didn't know or didn't understand. So I started looking up Aimpoint instructors, and that's how I found my way to you back then. It's different. It's such a small, back then it was not a large amount of people teaching Aimpoint, which is a very forward looking way of reading green. It's
science, it's scientific.
Right? It's scientific. Yeah. And that was one of the things. And from that first session,
it's math-based.
It's math-based.
Yeah.
And what was interesting in that is, so from that first lesson, I did take lessons. I did shoot my best round. Something that I don't talk about. I shot, after one of our sessions, you made a few changes and I shot 71. It was a short course and I was afraid that I wasn't going to duplicate it. So I never really talk about it. But I've gotten a lot of benefit from your instruction. So we dovetail into, now you're a acclaimed golf instructor.
I'm nodding, but I don't. Yeah, I still don't feel that, but okay.
We talk about the EQI portion of it at the end, maybe that's where some of it comes in. But you're recognized because there are things that are out there. So some of the awards, how do you differentiate yourself? How are you taking your life experiences, how you found your joy, and the impact that you want to have now?
I don't think about coaching as competition. I'm not trying to differentiate myself from other people, other coaches. We all come to golf in our own development in golf from different directions. I am probably, to my own detriment, unaware of what a lot of other people are doing. What I essentially do now, what I like to call a large part of my business, besides just short game and putting instruction, is our data-based structured coaching programs. Starting to use data and stats with my own game. So in 2013 to 14, I was at the PGA Merchandise Show in Orlando that winter, and I met Peter Sanders, who was Zach Johnson's statistician back in the early 2000s, before people were really doing that, and before ShotLink on the PGA Tour. And the year before that, I had gotten my first piece of golf technology besides a decent high-speed slow-motion camera. Radar was coming around, so there was flight scope and there was trackman, and I got a flight scope that winter as well. And so back then, the technology companies would just sell you something and be like, good luck, go figure it out. There really wasn't any training on it. And I started to teach with this stuff because I knew that there were things that I couldn't see. And I just needed to know there were answers still out there that, like, I can't see this stuff in 2D video. And there are other coaches who are more accomplished than me who are using these things. So that seems like a smart thing to do. And
so just quickly for the audience, the trackman and flight scope, it's just, so it'll tell you if you're hitting a ball, wherever you're hitting, it will tell you how far the ball will go.
It tells you an awful lot.
Yeah. So it was
it tells you about the golf club. It tells you about the ball. So it's essentially like an MRI. Back then, those were the two that were available that would measure both the golf club and the ball. And so now I'm on Foresight Sports Advisory Board, and I use a GC Quad, which is a photo-based system, and it has 4 cameras in it that each take 10,000 frames a second and triangulate the golf club as it comes into the golf ball and the ball as it takes off the golf club, and the moment of impact, right when the club and the ball touch. And it's the most accurate thing available, especially for indoor coaching and club fitting. And so this is all happening in a tiny little moment in time. You can draw certain inferences as a knowledgeable golfer and instructor about what is happening to the ball by its flight. But you cannot see downrange. You can't see how far the ball's going. You don't really know what the ball is doing. You don't really know how far it's going. So you can draw some inferences from the depth of the divot that the student makes, the direction that the divot goes, and the flight of the golf ball. You really don't know that much, and you're not seeing what you should be seeing. So if you start to learn how to use this technology, really what I do now is I sit in my studio 3 or 4 days a week when I'm not working outdoors at the club where you came for your aim point, Jumping Brook. I'm doing pattern recognition. I'm capturing their swing in 3D because I know I need that. I've been using 3D for a long time. And it's become a standard now pretty much in the golf industry too. So I have a 3D force plate. I work with Swing Catalyst, the leading force plate ground force measurement company in golf. And I use an optical 3D system from a company called Sportsbox AI, which is now phone-based, which is just mind-blowing to me. But I've used sensor-based and wired 3D systems since 2014 or something.
It's interesting though that I'm hearing you're using data and technology to confirm the best path forward for your students, right?
Went off on a tangent, but I met Peter. He gave me his stats program. I did 8 rounds. Got some data, was blown away by that information because by 8 rounds was representative, and there were things that I was much better at compared to the golf population than I realized. So it gave me some confidence. But then I was also not as good at certain things as I thought I was.
Okay.
And so I reorganized my limited practice time. And then the next year I got through local qualifying for the US Open, made it to sectionals, longest day in golf, won another tournament or 2 here in New Jersey. One of them I made 9 birdies and a whole bunch of putts when I'd already started to learn aim point at that point. And I think that day I made 5 putts outside of 24 feet because I was keeping track. And that was really mind-blowing to me at the time because what I realized was like, hey, I'm a thinking person. I attempt to think about this stuff and I teach all the time. And I was wrong about what my own strengths and weaknesses were. And if I'd gone to a golf coach, I probably would have asked him for full swing help. And I really didn't need it. What I realized was if my perceptions were incorrect after 20 years of high level golf, then pretty much everybody who's coming to me for a full swing lesson, trying to stop the pain in not hitting the ball well, probably wasn't attacking exactly what would lower their scores. So I started these structured programs where people would come to me once a month. We would organize a schedule and we would base their data, we would base their coaching on the data. And some people wanted to keep stats. Other people didn't want to keep stats. I wasn't a college coach. I couldn't bench my clients. So you're doing the best you can by people. And if they weren't doing stats, then I would at least force them to go, you're going to commit to this for 6 months. We're going to go out on the golf course. I'm going to watch you play. Because if we're not doing stats, I have no eyes on the golf course consistently. And I at least need to see what your strengths and weaknesses are in the wild instead of on a flat range tee. And not surprisingly, you were the smart person to actually be into aim point when it was very niche. But most golfers' short game skills are way inferior to their ball striking skills, but they don't realize it. So they're trying to hit better shots, more greens, but they would be much better served by working on their short game and getting good at getting the ball up and down, and also building skills in a smaller swing that will eventually transfer to a bigger swing.
Hey, it's Nigel. Quick favor, if you're appreciating the content so far, it would mean the world if you could follow, like, and share. It helps us to reach more folks like you. Now back to the conversation. It's the paradox. It's like the things that we chase sometimes, and that's not what's best for us. I'm smiling because using data to create plans, that's like what I find really special about the EQI work that I'm doing through these spurts and growths. And what are you learning about yourself? And what are you learning about the people that you're trying to teach?
I like always feeling like there's an opportunity for me to grow and get better, and that I control that. Now I have my own studio, and if I want to pursue a project and learn about something, I can organize my schedule and decide to do that. And if I want to change my business model a little bit because of a new technology that allows me to coach a better way, I can do that too. And I am doing that. Now I'm doing monthly coaching programs that include remote coaching with an optical 3D program on somebody's phone that gives them immediate feedback as to whether they're doing what we are working towards.
Yeah.
3D feedback. So they don't have to be able to look at their own golf swing on video and decipher what the heck is going on. I don't like the way I look in video. I will look at my outfit and be like, oh, that doesn't look good. So it's very helpful to see
the 3D
and know what you're doing.
Do you remember in April of 2020, we did our first online lesson via Zoom?
I do.
And we were trying to figure out the camera angles and all the other stuff. But think about how far you've probably come in that period of time. And why I'm saying that, there's often an opportunity for us, but we have to be willing to embrace what's in front of us. So you talked about the technology, AI. These are all things that were in front of us for a while. It seems like you jumped on some of those items, but I'm sidetracking us from what you're learning about you and the clients.
There were things that I knew I could see on video, and there were things that I knew I couldn't see. And some golf help is better than no golf help. And I think I was charging less for those Zoom lessons and FaceTime lessons than I did for in-person time, because I knew it was not quite what I could do with a sensor-based 3D system, which is what I was using here. I was lucky that I had done some remote coaching before COVID. One of the reasons I opened my studio is that I was working with a 3D company and doing some remote coaching, almost kind of Peloton type coaching. So I had the inkling that I could do it, and I'd actually coached somebody in Singapore and helped him a fair amount with his putting. And I was like, wow, I was able to help him with his putting from New Jersey on a Friday night at 9 p.m. while he was at his club in Singapore on Saturday morning.
All right.
And we were just able to talk through it. And he leaned his phone up against his bag and took some strokes. And I took video of him on Zoom and then slowed it down. And I was able to help him. And and I was doing full swing with him too. And he had a 3D system. Anybody who's willing to pay for golf coaching is a growth-minded person. They believe that somebody can help them. They believe that they have a better golfer inside of them. They've either they believe that coaching is an effective thing, or they've gotten very frustrated with being self-taught and using the internet and confusing themselves. And there's a lot of information out there now. So I say basically now I think I'm the anti-internet, anti-Instagram coach, because people who come to me are somewhat frustrated of being self-taught, from being self-taught. I've learned a lot about our society. Life has gotten a lot faster. I think people are generally more anxious than they used to be. And this goes straight to what you're doing now. I have had to become more of a mental coach by virtue of what I've been doing for the last 12 years. I'm an applied psychologist, and my business is called Paul Kaster Golf Coaching for a reason. To get good at golf, you have to learn some physical things, but then the better you get at the physical things, the game is awfully mental. And it's strategy, and it's understanding what is the game and what are we trying to accomplish. And it's not just hitting the golf ball better. What I've learned about a lot of golfers is that, I was saying this to you earlier, golfers early on in their golf development think that ball control leads to emotional control and thought control. And it's actually the other way around. The more functional you get with your golf skills. And so you have to learn how to control yourself and how you react to events and what you do. And you're playing an obstacle course, so you're really playing the course designer. And they're very skilled in messing with you, optical illusions, and you're playing an obstacle course. And so you're going to mess up, and the ball's going to go sideways a little bit, and you have to be okay with that and up for the adventure. And that is not what I think a lot of golfers feel about golf. It feels very perfect. It's a premium activity.
Right.
Golf courses are very green and peaceful, meditative, and yet really you're volunteering to pay a decent amount of money to go out and get tortured by Donald Ross and A.W. Tillinghast, and you better be ready for that.
So when I first started playing, I thought that this is peaceful, or I am actually going to spend more time in nature. And it was, I think I was 25, right? 24 when I started playing, and I'd just been diagnosed with an irregular heartbeat. All the time that I spent training for track and everything else grew this huge muscular heart that then I just stopped working out and I was working. So it was beating irregular every other beat. Right? And I got this information. So now I'm like, I need to seek out things that were actually going to
keep you calm,
keep me calm and be, I thought golf, because the ball is, the ball is stable. It's no one else is talking. No one is moving. It's just me, the golf club, and the ball. I grew up playing basketball. I grew up playing soccer. No one's hitting you. No one's in your way. And man, it's been an interesting evolution. I learned so much about myself in that process.
So you're playing yourself. You're playing, your opponents are yourself, the conditions, the weather, and the golf course. And you're out there for 4 or 5 hours. And if it's a good golf course, it's challenging. And it's going to test you. Sometimes it'll give you a little bit of a breather, but it's going to punch you right back in the face. And then you have to be anticipating that and knowing how to deal with the difficulties and how to play in a high percentage, lower risk way. And that goes for the techniques that you use, the targets that you choose, all of that. And it's just not, that's not how a typical golfer approaches golf. I think the average person, this is their weekend thing. They watch golf on TV. That is a curated highlight reel for entertainment. It's not reality. We're seeing the best players in the world do things that they're freakishly talented at. And then most people will go out onto the golf course and try to hit these heroic shots and go for the flag, and then end up in the worst possible places that are just with really hard recovery shots, short-sighted in a bunker. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do is, unfortunately, I'm breaking glass a little bit. I'm like, I know you want the fantasy of this, but this is what you have to do to shoot lower scores. But the fulfillment from truly developing a golf game and the ability to shoot lower scores is so much more rewarding than the happiness of hitting just one
Really good
pure
shot. Yeah.
shot. And there's a lot of parallels to life, and you develop, I think, a lot from becoming a good golfer.
I agree with the parallels to life. When I started playing golf, it seems simple, but it's complicated. And maybe that's some of the things to go into, the parallels in life.
I share this stuff with my clients because it's my matrix, and my way of saying it is for how I teach, how I think about helping people solve their problems. I liken this to like climbing a mountain. We're all climbing a mountain in life. You are, in some ways, just out there alone trying to figure your way up this mountain. It's helpful to have a guide in golf who can show you like how to use a backpack and read a map and navigate. And that's what I do for my clients in person and remotely. So I explain the way I think about learning golf to them. And so the first one is basically we don't do things randomly, and you don't hit golf ball after golf ball on the range. You're trying to make yourself feel better. And that's what I've always seen people do for years on driving ranges.
Activities are not accomplishments. I say that all the time.
Yeah. I remember early on in law school, the first semester is pretty nerve-wracking, and you can easily convince yourself that you're being productive by just doing stuff. And yet not really be productive at all. And so we don't want to just, if we're going to get better at golf and you're investing in coaching, we're going to train instead of do random activity. And so how do we train? If you're learning a new technique, you have to do that methodically. And we don't ever hit the same shot twice in golf. So we're not going to just hit 7 irons for an hour, one after the other. So we're going to go slowly, and we're going to learn how new things feel, because we're trying to improve. So we're not going to swing 90 miles an hour and try to change. I have a fun story about John Rahm and a conversation. I've met him, and I got to spend a day with him at TPI in California with his coach, Dave Phillips. And he had a fun story, and he made fun of Americans for just standing on a driving range and swinging full speed and like trying to change their golf swings. So we don't do that. We're methodical, and we go slowly so you can feel things. And then you have to learn skills, and you have to learn how to perform in a performance environment. And so each one of those things is a separate activity. And then when you're out playing, you have a pre-shot routine, and that is basically starts with a plan. The golf course is always asking you to do something different. You have to come up with a plan of how to tackle a particular shot. And then you prepare. You've chosen the club. You get ready. How do I use this club to attack this situation? I think this is the right club. How do I commit to it and use it to deal with this situation? And then you execute it, and you have to be committed, and you just do it. And you do what you prepared. If you try to execute without preparation, something's going to go wrong. If you try to execute without a plan, that seems dumb. No forethought, no thinking about where you're going. You're just going to hit it right at the hole. That's not how you play a golf course, right? Not to be too blunt, but those are ideas. Those are important ideas for how to play golf and how to deal with life. And then after you do that, you assess how did that go? Did it go well? Okay, great. That built my confidence. So now I know that I have that shot today, and things change from day to day, and I might be a different golfer today than I was yesterday, but I have that shot today, so I can do that again. So that's good. I'm going to put that in my memory banks. And if it wasn't great, then how do I adjust? That process of plan, prepare, execute, assess, adjust is essentially how I've taught the pre-shot and the post-shot routine. And anybody who's listening, that one's on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a pretty useful exercise to go through. And if you develop a good routine, you're just doing that over and over again. It's like rinse and repeat.
Routine breeds consistency. Consistency breeds performance. The framework is something it's simple, but not simplistic. How are you helping people manage that mental part of it?
The emotional reaction to tough experiences is something that we have to manage in golf. And that's life too.
That's life too, right?
And Tiger's dad had a rule, Earl had a rule for Tiger that he was allowed to be angry. Tiger didn't get sad, he got angry. And he was allowed to be angry, but he had to walk it off, and his anger had to be gone within 5 steps after he hit a shot and put his golf club away. They started that from when he was pretty young, and he still occasionally talks about that. So that obviously left an impression on him. So you have to be able to dispose of your feelings somehow, and then be able to go right back through your process, whatever your process is, and not have that last experience carry over in a negative emotional way to how you execute the process. Go through that process again. Your plan, prepare, execute another time. You're going to do it 85 times, 75 times, 65 times a round. So you have to be able to just keep on doing it until all the shots are done. And then you count it up.
That's actually really interesting, where it's that rinse and repeat, finding what works and then being committed to that process, which is extremely hard, I find. What's next for you, and how are you managing you from experience to experience?
I don't often know what's next for me until some kind of remarkable thing happens to me, or some technology comes along, or I meet some amazing person who introduces something to me where it's, wow, that could be really interesting and helpful. I have a couple of things like that in the hopper, people who've introduced themselves and new things that I'm aware of that could easily help my clients and help people get much better. And I'm very lucky to have 4 or 5 kids now who have told me that they want to play very high level golf, and I think have the potential to do that. I take that responsibility seriously. And so I'll do whatever I can for them, trying to uncover. And this is something that I guess I've been doing it, but just I don't think about my own story. Yeah. Sitting here talking to you has made me think about, like, how did this sort of happen? But in a way, I've been trying to do this since maybe 2013. No stone unturned. And anytime something comes up where it's like, I could help this person better.
So staying open to learning new ideas.
Yeah. Self-reflective. There's the reflective teaching model. My wife's a school teacher. You have to reflect on what you've done. And if I leave a lesson, this is a timed experience. It's 60 minutes. Conveying information once does not mean that it's learned. Right? So you have to reinforce things with people, and you have to repeat things to people. The reality is, after that time, something may occur to you or you might leave with a feeling where I could have done that better. And then you try to figure out how to do it better. And so whatever's next for me is going to come out of that process.
Okay.
And the people and the technology that are presenting themselves. And I'm really enjoying the remote coaching process, and I know I'm getting better at it. And Sportsbox AI I got to give them, the company, props. I'm on staff with them, but every single update from the company, there's new data on my side as an instructor that is literally the first time we've been able to ever measure something like that. So the company keeps on pushing, and I have this opportunity now to see, how can improving that metric improve somebody's performance? Or how do I improve that metric? Because I could absolutely see how improving that will improve somebody's performance. And we can measure it with a cell phone. People don't need to be with me anymore. My juniors who are capturing their swings in practice, I can see stuff now. And it's definitely keeping me busy.
How do you see setbacks when it doesn't go the way that you want it to go, the way that you've planned, prepare to execute? You adjust, you have to
reflect.
Right?
You have to reflect and be honest with yourself sometimes, and you're not going to linger on it for too long. A lot of times you can have a blind spot, and your blind spots can really hurt you bad in life. And if I fail somehow, we have to understand that's life. Perfect execution. Life is not linear. Golf is not linear. You see the scores from the best players in the world vary a lot over the course of a season. They may average around 69 or 70, but they shoot 77, 78, and they also shoot 60. And so the range, that can be maddening unless you expect it. And so if you expect it and you plan for it, then that's just golf. And you have a bad day, that's life. You go home, you spend time. I have a 6-year-old. She does not care. She just wants to hang out. And I'm very lucky that she still wants to hang out. And I'm going to try to hang out with her as long as she wants to hang out with me, which is another reason why this arrangement and me having my own business is very good for me. But that makes me feel better. It makes me feel healthier to have a family life with my wife and my daughter. And
you're not going to mention Benny?
And Benny, he's, sometimes. Puppy, I have a dog too. His name is Benny Hogan Kaster. And he has an Instagram also, thanks to my wife, who encouraged that. But he's an 18-month-old French bulldog, and I had no idea really what I was getting myself into with him. So he's very interesting character. But yeah, Chloe, she makes things a lot better. My wife does too. And you just go home and you lick your wounds for a little bit. You reflect on how you could have done things differently and then you determine if it was you, then you better learn from it. And if it wasn't, you better be sure it wasn't you, and then let it go, because there are other people acting on you in the world. There are things acting on you in golf. You will get bad bounces. The golf course is hard. If you're playing a championship golf course in a tournament, it's hard. It's set up hard. It's meant to test you. Life is not meant to be easy either. You just develop some grit and some persistence and hopefully some self-awareness and the ability to reflect. And then you learn from it. You try to grow, you try to get better. I have worked with a number of the best sports psychologists in golf, give them full credit, gone through coaching programs for golf coaches that they've done. Going back to 2001, Dr. Rick Jensen. And that was because I recognized that golf has an emotional component. The stuff that I've learned from those people and from you and from the EQI has helped me a lot, and it helps you deal with difficulty. Yeah. And that's going to happen.
Before we go into the EQI, how do you factor in the guitar?
That's a double-edged sword. So I golf for a long time. Golf now is my job. I still have this really curiosity about how do changing these little things with golf clubs and so forth change performance. And I still tinker with my own golf clubs. I'm in the process of, I just got a new putter. I don't know why, but it's really cool. And now I'm like trying to figure out, do I like the finish on it? And but for the most part, golf is work. And so I do other things to relax, and guitar's one of them. And I'm lucky to have played since I was like 12. I actually grew up playing violin in the neighborhood I was in. I got chased around the neighborhood because of my violin case. That stopped. Then I picked up guitar, and I had a band in high school. And my best friend came out from Chicago like a year and a half ago. He was my drummer, and we were just talking about it. And I took out a guitar, and I was like, yeah, this is fun and relaxing.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's something that I can do at home around my daughter, who is pretty musical because my wife is musical. She's a music teacher. She's the choir director at her high school. So my daughter is very into music and dance and not at all into golf, which is perfectly fine with me. But she's a good dancer. And so it's cool to see some of the Kaster physicality coming out in her. And I just practice guitar, and when I say it's a double-edged sword, it's just because I do have an acquisitional aspect to my personality. So I'm restraining myself to avoid buying too many guitars or pedals, but that's also fun. And I don't spend ridiculous amounts of money on that stuff. I have this game where I like to buy inexpensive guitars that play really well, and then I trade them for something else. And so I've kept myself at a certain number.
So you've gamified learning and playing the guitar. So for our first lesson, you wanted to understand the way that I learned. And I think also my temperament around the golf course and setbacks. And you recommended that I did a DISC assessment. And at the time, I think I was learning to negotiate. So I traded my DISC assessment for your EQI assessment at the time as a way of learning more about each other and sharing information with each other. What did you learn from that EQI assessment?
Yeah, and the DISC evaluation, by the way, was not mine. It's something that I have used as a tool or had used as a tool for a while with clients that was adapted to golf by an interesting guy. But the EQI was very interesting and in a way more complete and more tailored to general life improvement, not just golf. And it was very accurate too. There were pieces that were very strong, and it was nice to see that and nice to see what the benefits were. And when I say that, I just realized that I said the same thing about my stats 10 years ago. It's important to focus on the positive things. And I saw that, and that was cool. And it ratified some feelings that I had, but you don't really know until something is measured. So self-regard was one of them. And I don't mind sharing this stuff, and the other one was the way in which I provide feedback. And on off days, it was absolutely true. And I think I've gotten better just as a result of doing that evaluation, whatever it was, 2 years ago. And that's the purpose of doing stuff like this, is not to label yourself. It's to constantly grow in different ways and try to be the best version of yourself that you can be for the people who rely on you.
Yeah.
And I have people who rely on me, whether that's my wife or my daughter or my clients. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the clients who trust me and rely on me to achieve their goals.
Yeah. And I wanted to say a little bit on the self-regard. On your note, it was you had really high standards for yourself and was not being as kind to yourself through certain experiences. Also, your dad was an instructor. So he was very directive in how he would communicate with you. And that would show up in your self-regard or the conversations you have with yourself and sometimes how you would communicate.
Yeah, and that's all completely accurate. And my wife got me a sweatshirt. It was a funny sweatshirt, and it was mediocrities. And the quote was, meh, good enough. So she understands my affliction. And yeah, it doesn't hurt to have things reiterated to you.
Yeah. What is the one through line as you think of yourself and life and as you move forward? What's that consistent theme, and what is that one thing that you'd say shows up often for you?
I enjoy learning and getting better. The way that I've chosen to do that, or the activity that I've chosen for that, has changed over time. If I don't actually enjoy the activity, it's hard to get better. It's hard to enjoy the process. So I would say golf has always been an enjoyable activity, whether it was playing or learning how to be a coach and becoming the best coach that I personally could be in my way for my clients. And so I'm going to keep on trying to enjoy that process. And I think the learning and the growth process, and then trying to tone it back a little bit and maybe not work myself too hard and be a little bit easier on myself.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate your honesty and openness and sharing your story. So appreciate you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So what stayed with me from this episode? Do something that has meaning. Embrace technology as a way forward. Practice with purpose. Don't just go through the motions. Have a method. Don't do things randomly. Go slow at first until you actually acquire the skill. Plan, prepare, execute, assess, adjust, rinse, and repeat. Also, be able to dispose of your emotions and then go right back to your process. Hey, it's Nigel again. Each episode of the Me Inc. podcast is a journey, and I'm truly grateful you chose to walk this path with me today. If our conversation struck a chord, I'll be honored if you would like and share it. Let's spread the insights and growth. Have thoughts or a story of your own? I'm always here to listen. Reach me at nigel@meinchelp.com or DM me on Instagram at Nigel Franklin Way. Your time, your energy, your presence, they mean the world to me. Continue seeking, keep growing, and until our voices meet again, remember, take care and be kind to yourself.